There was an exact moment that I realized I didn't know how to run a sales team at the level that I thought I did. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be me just talking to the camera about a story of how, when I went into the financial planning space, and I had a company that was basically in the superannuation financial planning space, that at that level and the growth that we wanted to make, I wasn't as good as I actually thought I was. I'd just come out of Bellator Australia, selling my shares and also exiting with a company, as well as having multi-seven-figure contracts ongoing for service delivery. And that was a pretty good sale. I was pretty happy with it. Went and bought a, Jaguar SVR, which is a, fairly expensive car. Enjoyed all that, had a good kind of celebration after it. But as soon as this happened, I was already in the startup phase of another financial planning company. So when we started bringing on people, we needed to get to like 10 people, 10 front end, what we called super specialists, within literally a few months, because I wanted this to be the biggest launch of a company that I ever had. So we needed to get to hundreds of thousands of dollars per month within literally a few months. And to skip forward, within month 9, we were already doing close to $500,000 a month in revenue. So it was going pretty well, but it did not end there. It started by bringing on a large amount of people and really realizing that my hiring processes for salespeople were not as good as I thought they were. And also the actual sales training, sales management was nowhere near, and the skills I had were nowhere near where I needed them to be to actually perform at the level that I needed. So I kind of scraped together as much as I possibly could from the previous company. But in all honesty, Biz Leadz up until that point wasn't a super sales heavy organization. And the main sales kind of history that I had was either myself selling, teaching people at Biz Leadz, or it was obviously at Bellator Group Australia. So it wasn't directly in financial services, and the team that I was directly managing was going to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was going to become harder and harder and harder with less resources to manage it as well within this new financial services company. So I had to really act fairly quickly. So I went, watched every single video I possibly could, paid someone to actually help me with it and implementing a few systems, and that is how I actually came up with the sales management system that we actually use now. How we do the daily one-on-ones and the daily huddles, how we do the weekly one-on-ones, how you need to review 5 to 10 different pieces of their sales material weekly and then sit down on the one-on-ones and actually go over that strategically. How you also onboard people and bring people on, how you need to script and make sure that even the people who aren't going to be the best AA top players need to be able to actually script and know the script to actually be able to have a conversation with the person without thinking about what they're going to say next. So basically, to go through what happened, it was we started bringing people on, and performance was nowhere near. They were doing average, 3 deals a month, 4 deals, 5 deals, and it was just nowhere near where we needed to be. It needed to be at about 10 to 15 deals per month for it to really, really work. And we all put together our heads trying to come up with the best scenarios of how we get people there, whether we, change the lead flow, change this, change that. And I also realized that lead flow is the lead quality, is much less important than people actually think. They think it's kind of the be all end all, but when you get bigger and bigger, you realize that as long as the leads have a basic flow of a compliant, good ad that matches the product you serve, with a good landing page, with a good form, with SMS verification, email verification, and then a well set up thank you page. As long as you have that, that is kind of not all you need. That's actually a very difficult process to do and then have under cost and do that. But as long as you do that, the sales team is the rest. So if someone comes back and you've got that front end process and they come back and they say, I only got 3% on my leads, 5% on my leads, it's not the leads, it's the salesperson. Because we had people converting at all the way up closer to 10% in financial planning, which is very, very good for digital leads, but we also had people at 4%, 3%. So you wonder how you can deal with, 100, 150 leads, and then the other people just don't convert as many. They convert 5 deals instead of 15. So it's a very, very it was a tough time going through it, actually, because it makes you, one, realize that you need to really level up your skills of what you are as a sales manager, because I was the person who was directly managing the sales manager. We didn't have heaps and heaps of resources because it's only a new company, and the cash flow cycles of a company like this are very, very hard in terms of they don't have Like, you don't have cash instantly. It takes, months for it actually to roll over in financial planning, because you have to do the fact find, do everything. They sign the statement of advice, then you move obviously on to the next stages. So wasn't an easy kind of cash flow cycle. So you don't have all of the resources to be able to keep investing into sales managers, more talent, more this and that. So we had to really dial down, and this was a system that basically we came up with. It was daily huddles in the morning, going over previous testimonials, previous clients, going over what they did yesterday and what they were planning out for today. Then moving on, it was, you had to review, the sales manager or the person involved had to review 5 to 10 calls per week. And the people, the actual salespeople, the super specialists, had to move their mid call, best call, and worst call into a tagged section so that it could actually be reviewed by myself. And then from there, you'd sit down and you would go over, in about 45 minutes to an hour, you would go over how that actually went and what pieces of kind of information you can take from those calls and what you can improve on. And you just look at it. Firstly, did it match the script segments? So was it going into segment 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of segment 1, 4, 8, 2, 3, etc.? Was it following that? Yes, perfect. Now, then you pinpoint the next best part of the script that is the closest to the start, that needs the most improvement, because the close at the end, for example, is very important. But what's more important is you can never get to a close if your intro is trash. And the system of role playing really comes into it. So if they go and they give a terrible tone as they're starting off the call, and they say something like, for example, they'd go, "Hey James, this is, XYZ name from XYZ company." You go, "That's a terrible opening," because their tone and the tone I was using. Instead, you start off and you go, "Hey James, it's XYZ person from XYZ company. How are you doing today?" It's a very different way that you're actually presenting. And the way you think of tone is in speed, and also the level of your voice, the decibels of your voice, because tone's really hard to describe. So for example, in tone, if you speak slightly faster and you raise your voice slightly, that illustrates a more positive tone. Whereas if you slow down what you're actually saying and you say it with, again, less speed and less, it can illustrate that you're actually not as happy and it's more serious. So you need to really be able to identify things like this in the way that you actually train people, so that they have actionable ways to actually improve week on week. And then from there, you have a monthly review as well as a once a week with every single person. And we found that this worked very, very well. And the team structure that I always talk about has also evolved massively as well. We started off with just one kind of person who takes the leads all the way through to settlement. And we found that I didn't even do that back in the finance days before this. It was always, you have an entry person who escalates it up to a senior person, because they don't want to be dealing with they don't want to be dealing with every single front end lead. So they can handle double the amount of leads by, you just put someone in front of them, an SDR, sales development representative, and you keep doing that. And I think the biggest thing that I also learned, this was the exact process that we landed on. It was, we needed to basically, most people could only handle 100 to 120 leads per month, and we upped that straight to 200. And the way we did that was this. And because the fact find process in financial planning is so compliant and so long, it usually takes 30, 45 minutes for a fact find. Okay. So with a fact find, you need to make sure that you have the who we call super specialists, and then we have research consultants. So super specialists are like the senior level brokers equivalent, and the actual research consultants were the people who would do the fact find and the research. And basically what would happen is the people who are the best on the opening, so the super specialists or the brokers, they would pick up the phone and say, "Perfect, I'm going to hand you off." Obviously, this isn't the exact script. "I'm going to hand you off to the research consultant for 30 or 45 minutes, and they're going to hand you back when they're done. When they come back, you trial close them." And the trial close would be something like this. It would go and say, "Perfect, so if we got you back, and it was able to be tax efficient for you, you were able to actually get the advice you wanted year on year, and it didn't, cost you an arm and a leg, there would be no reason why you wouldn't want to be moving forward, right?" And they'd say, "No, there's no reason." You see, that's a trial close with a no to say yes. Multiple different strategies were used like that to obviously help in the sales. And that was what we found the best. We'd start off with like the super specialist, the actual topper, the more senior person. They'd then do only the first couple minutes. And then after the first couple of minutes, they would hand it directly off for the 30 to 45 minutes. And then guess what they do? They go and call more leads. And when you have a team of 5 to 10 super specialists, 5 to 10 research consultants, you can keep handing off fact finds all day long. And you could get up to doing 3, 5 fact finds a day. It was like per person. It was unbelievable what it ended up turning into. Now, that then escalated into leads going up, as I mentioned. So now they're able to do even more fact finds. And we were able to really, really make sure that the team also had a proper escalation process of the people would come in, you start as a research consultant, you'd get good at that for 3 months, then you could be escalated into an actual closer and move up from there. Now, that was the process of what actually happened. It was a very good system because you have, and then you also have to split that up by training as well, meaning there are obviously very different levels of training. One has to be focused on the actually doing the fact finds. The other person is focused on specifically intros and the closing, as well as sitting on the call with the financial planner, who's a separate company, who is actually presenting and closing these clients. So that was when I really realized I didn't know how to do it at the level that I thought I could. Because in the broker world, I would say it's easier to close deals than in financial planning by about 100%, we'll say, maybe more. I hate to say it. I hate brokers, don't kill me, but like it's probably about 2 or 3 times harder to close financial planning clients over the phone because of the systems you need, the time delays, the SOAs coming back. It's in really regulated space, so you have to be very, very compliant and make sure you don't break any rules. So hopefully that was a little bit, again, different style of video, but hopefully it actually gives a little bit of insight into how there's usually a catalyst to why someone can go and say, I'm sure this works, because you go through months and months and months of talking to people, paying people, trying it, testing it, failing, and really, really failing. Like it's never an easy process. Like now I look back and, there's lessons learned and you have a process and system that works now. But looking back, it was an unbelievably hard time of going through that, of just the people not hitting numbers. You're just wondering, why is this not happening? Like, why am I not closing deals? And it's just our revenues keep on growing. So yeah, it's a bit of story time, but hope you have an amazing day and we'll speak soon.